Welcome to the I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes podcast. I'm author and speaker Carrie Severson. In each episode, I'll share stories and tips from my experience with caregiving and advocacy through my husband's cancer journey. Hi, welcome back to I Saved You, Now Do the Dishes. Thanks so much for being here. We are almost done with season 1, just I think 2 more episodes to go. Next season, which I'll launch in the fall, you'll meet my husband. You'll meet Gavin. We'll talk about being a caregiver and a patient and spouses. We'll talk about my healing journey. I'll introduce you to our dog, Huckleberry. I'm sure you've seen him, though, once or twice already. But today's episode, it does kind of feel like a therapy session, though, doesn't it? Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about this last week of his treatment. A lot happened. So last I left you, I talked about the cracks in our system, and the human error that happens, mine included, caregivers included. Maybe you're handling your experience differently than I did, but I had a lot of, there was so much emotion. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of resentment. And sometimes that spilled over into me making mistakes. So the weekend going into his last week of treatment, my mom and my sister came over, took care of me, supported Gavin. I was able to go get my nails and toes done. That felt great. That little hour of my own time was weird. It felt foreign. The Sunday before that last week, he was really sick. He threw up a lot. So we did change formula. And first thing Monday morning, I put a phone call into the GI department asking for a workaround. And a workaround was a term I learned that meant emergency. Try to squeeze him in before hours, after hours, as anything available. Put us on a waiting list. I think he needs to be seen and accepted into the GI department before, we were put on the calendar for the 1st of April. I think it was April 2nd or something. Is there anything in March? We were still waiting for our gravity bag, still waiting for the gravity pole, but what have you. So Monday started every other day or every other week. He did have a blood draw, which meant bad news bears for Gavin. It meant that the chemotherapy or the oncology department was actually looking to see if he was strong enough for chemotherapy. We knew it. I said yes to the appointment, told Gavin, we've got to at least try. But he was, in his mind, he was nodding his head yes. But, come to find out in his mind, he was like, there's no way I'm going to go to that. I'm not going to that. But he did the blood draw. He had radiation. Got through feedings, okay. Drugs, okay. It was really Tuesday. So Tuesday was our in-person meeting with the oncologist. And Gavin was really looking forward to that meeting because he wanted to talk to the oncologist himself about the fact that apparently our case fell through the cracks and that we weren't supported in the way that oncology patients should be. We never once met with an oncology nurse. And the last time Gavin had chemotherapy, he was considered a overdose patient. They called him snowed, unresponsive. And my options were to admit him to the ER as an overdose patient, let the nurse there the technician give him Narcan, or pray that he sleep it off. we opted into the third option, and he ended up going through like a detox period, and it pissed him off so badly that he was like, I'm not doing chemotherapy again. We think what actually happened is they overdosed him Benadryl because two different technicians or nurses came in to give him drugs before they actually admitted chemotherapy. So he had like a little PTSD about it, and he was looking forward to telling the actual oncologist about this experience, because it had been probably a month since he had chemo, and he hadn't seen the oncologist since January. So we're in this meeting. There's a woman sitting in front of us that we had never seen before. We have no idea. We're assuming she's a nurse. And she's like, we think you're going to be done. And Gavin's like, good. I don't want to do it anyway. She's like, yeah, we'll probably cancel. You know, he had just had his blood drawn the day before. She's like, your white blood cell count is actually looking much better, considering that it was 0.02 when he got admitted to the long-term cancer wing. And, you know, 0.00 is you're either meeting your maker or your hater, right? Like you're dead at that point. Anything above like, I think 1.5, and they would have admitted chemotherapy. And she's like, you're at 3, you're looking strong, but we understand, you know, your quality of life has really been impacted here, and you'll most likely be done. And so that's how this meeting started. And we're like excited. Now it's just talking to the oncologist himself about Gavin's experience. At least that's what we think is going to happen. So that guy walks in. I am pulsing my fingernails into the palm of my hands because I'm just disgusted with the fact that, you know, he wanted to push Gavin's case out a month from the beginning. You know, cancer kills you, right? If you have cancer in more than one organ in your body, it's already metastasized. It's pretty important to get it out. And the man knew where it was in Gavin's body, and he was still saying, we're going to wait a month before we start to kill the cancer in your body. I didn't like the guy to begin with. I was like, no, you're not. I will find someone else if you don't start him. So out of the gate, didn't like him. Then Gavin has his experience during like the 4th week of chemo, which is not good. And then they're like, we're going to discharge you from the hospital, but you have to be back here to talk to us at 7 a.m. the next day. That felt like punishment. And then he's willing to come in and speak to you on his day off at 7 a.m. via conference call. Screw you, a-hole. No. So here we are sitting 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and he walks in, and I can't stand up and shake his hand. I can't look at him. I let Gavin talk. And the man is like, well, your white blood cell count is strong, and it is really important that you do chemo. And so I'm going to request that you do one more round of chemo. And we both looked over at this woman standing in the corner, and she is bright red. She doesn't have anything to say. And I felt like all our balloons just got popped, like kicked in the gut. Gavin is so close to being done with treatment. He's got the rest of the week, and then I think he was supposed to be done like the following Tuesday. And so he looks at the calendar and he's like, we're going to book it for Tuesday, which would have been his very last day of treatment. And I speak up at that point and I'm like, that's his last treatment day. You don't have anything else. Like, no one wants a 10-hour day at the hospital, the very last day. And that usually is what happened. What happened in our experience on chemo radiation days was he had a port draw. He had his blood drawn. I think it was the same thing. They typically scheduled radiation and chemotherapy. You have to have so much time in between your port draw and chemotherapy. So it was like, for sure, that was a 4-hour experience. And I think your port draw had to be like 90 minutes before chemo. Radiation was like an hour. And they typically tacked on some sort of infusion. It was always a really long day. And I'm like, you're sure you have to do this in the very last day of his treatment plan? Like, we're already so far outside what we thought was going to happen here. And so he's like, yeah, we're just, we don't have any other time available. Okay. So the rest of the week, goes fine. And when I say fine, I mean like we're barely holding on here. The skin of our teeth. But finally, we're in the week that is his last week. And Gavin is excited. He's ready to be done. He was so excited that he wanted to go to Crumble Cookie the day before. It was actually, Crumble Cookie 2 days before. He picked out 4 gigantic cookies. He wanted to give them to the techs. He was really excited. He loves Crumble Cookie. It's his favorite. He couldn't obviously have it. He couldn't swallow anything. But he was so excited. He took forever to pick out the best 4 looking cookies. And so here it is, the final, what was supposed to be his final day. And it started early with a video conference call it wasn't a chemo nurse. It wasn't an oncology nurse. It was like a tech to make sure Gavin's healthy and ready to come in for chemo. So he had his blood drawn the day before. Numbers came back great. I'm feeding Gavin. It's like 7 a.m. I'm feeding Gavin on the couch. Actually, I'm not feeding him. I have it all lined up. And at that point, he was feeding himself. We had figured out, the perfect angle for his body. And he could inject himself with formula if he had a pillow propped up underneath the actual feeding tube. He is, what would have been like this chair behind me. So I'm talking to the person, the scheduler, the admin or whatever. Gavin's in the background. He acknowledges he's there. He waves. And the woman on the conference call is like, okay, so he is scheduled for chemo then today. And you guys have radiation then after that. And Gavin pushes the formula through. Meanwhile, my mom walks in the house just right then because we had actually had a company, I can't even remember the name. I think it's Cleaners for Care or it's something like that. It's a national organization that cleans cancer family homes for free, I think twice during their treatment plan. Look into that. Definitely take advantage of that. It is a national organization. They have chapters everywhere. And I scheduled somebody like during the very beginning of our treatment. And then here we are on the very last day. So I had them coming. So I wasn't going to be there. We were at the hospital all day. My mom was there to just hang out and be there for them, keep the house open. So Gavin pushes formula through really quickly into his PEG tube, also another name for feeding tube. He stands up, walks over to the computer and is like, I really don't want to do chemotherapy. Is there any way I can get out of it? I really don't want to do chemotherapy. I had a really bad experience. And he basically like pours his heart out on screen to this woman. And she's like, well, you're scheduled for it. So he walks around the computer and throws up into the sink, violently throws up into the sink. And the woman's like, is everything okay? And I stand up. I push myself away from the computer because there's now formula all over the counter. Because it comes out fierce. It comes out fast. It is like projectile vomiting. And I'm like, no, he just puked everywhere. My mom is standing in the kitchen watching this, horrified. She's got her purse still in her hand. She literally just walked in, didn't say a thing. And Gavin starts throwing up gobs of blood. And I mean like golf ball size blood clots, jelly, really big jelly-like substance. Man. And so I'm like, no, it's not okay. And I'm telling I'm telling this person what's happening. And she's like, okay, I'm going to talk to the doctor. Please stay tuned. So she hangs up. Meanwhile, this was supposed to be, it wasn't going to be an easy day. He had chemotherapy scheduled. He had radiation scheduled. It was going to be a long day, but it wasn't supposed to be. So I had scheduled a meeting with my doctor, who I hadn't spoken to in months, because by that point I had easily put on like 40 pounds. I mean, I was so heavy. I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was buying clothes I never bought before. And when I say, like everything was stretchy, everything was loose, but I was in a size I had never been before. And my stomach was extended. It hurt. It was hard. I needed help. And I had scheduled a call during a period of time. We weren't expected to be at the hospital. There was like a 45-minute window where I was like, I can take care of myself here because he will have been fed. We had this conference call. We didn't have to leave for the hospital until like, I want to say 11. And he had chemotherapy, and then there was an hour break, and then he had radiation. And radiation was scheduled for like, 4. It was going to be a longer day. And then we would have gotten stuck in traffic. So I planned on feeding him and really not leaving the hospital until like 6. So we're waiting for this person to call back. I'm basically like telling us what we should do, because my thought is he should go. I mean, he threw up a lot of blood. And, my thought was, I think we need to go to the ER. And Gavin's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just blood. Meanwhile, he looks like a ghost, and he's sitting on the couch, like really weak. We were told when he throws up formula, he can't really, it's not like you can try again. All right. So the hospital always called my number. I was his advocate because he couldn't always speak. So I hand Gavin my phone. I take his phone. I call my doctor. I have a conversation with my doctor. Meanwhile, I can hear Gavin talking on the phone with somebody in oncology. My mom is going back between our bedroom where I'm having a conversation with my doctor about my issues and Gavin. My doctor is like, oh, well, we can run all these tests. And in my heart, I knew the tests that my doctor wanted to run on my body were not aligned with what I felt was happening. But I just kept on saying, okay, great. Okay, great. Yep, let's do that. Just so I could get off the phone so that I could be present in whatever was happening with Gavin and his health. Caregivers need help. We need financial support. We need, there should be something for caregivers in America where it's like you can apply to, there needs to be a separate insurance company or separate something. There needs to be something more for caregivers. We always come last. So I hang up with my doctor, make a mental note to basically email her and say, like, I don't agree with anything we just talked about. These are the tests I want you to run. This is the situation I'm in. I apologize for wasting both our times, but like, I was in like a fight, flight, freeze scenario. I didn't know what to do. I really wanted to talk to you. I wanted to, get vitamins. I do need blood drawn. Like, I needed to start putting energy into my health, but I was just off my game. Walk out into the family room and I hear the person on the other end of the phone say, you need to go to the hospital. You need to get admitted to the ER. We need to actually run some tests. You need a CT scan of your chest. I heard that, to make sure that nothing ripped in your esophagus, because the blood, Gavin actually was truthful. And he was like, yeah, it was like like a little bit smaller than my fist, but they were big. My mom has already started cleaning up the blood and the formula from the counter all over the sink. It's splashed up onto the fridge. And she's like, we need to get this cleaned before a company comes and basically like mops and dusts and everything. Like, this isn't anyone's responsibility but mine. So she's like, I'm going to clean up the kitchen. Okay. So I run around the house, and granted, this was supposed to be his last day. I run around the house. I'm prepared for what, an ER trip is. I grab pillows. I grab overnight bag, and we're out the door. Gavin gets taken back into the ER. They run all these tests, and they're basically like, okay, so first of all, chemotherapy isn't happening. Radiation isn't happening. And he's adamant. He's like, I'm never doing chemotherapy again. In his mind, he feels like he had a PTSD response. My personal belief is that he pushed formula through too fast and his body couldn't accept it. And so it was a esophagus kind of issue. Formula came up, and because he disrupted his esophagus, and all of the blood and all of the scabs came up with it. But, in his mind, it was a PTSD response. He doesn't get admitted. He gets kept in the observation wing. He's fed. All the scans are clean. He doesn't have any rips. There's nothing in his lungs. He doesn't have pneumonia. He didn't rip his esophagus. Like, these are things that they're looking at. I can't stay in the observation room with him overnight. And Gavin's pissed. Like, he's so pissed. He's so like, I don't want to be here. And I'm like, well, dude, you're not coming home. So, I mean, it's just a nightmare. The whole thing was a nightmare. Okay. Meanwhile, my mom's at my house with cleaning ladies, and they're there for free. I think it's Cleaning for Care. I'm so sorry. If I find the company, I will put it in the show notes, and she's like, I don't have any cash. And I'm like, give them the crumble cookies. So they each picked out their 2 crumble cookies. Mom put them like in Tupperware. And she's like, we're so sorry. We don't have any cash for you, but here, accept our cookies. And everything gets scheduled. Well, radiation gets, his last day of radiation happens the following day. So I run over to Krispy Kreme Donuts, and I get 2 dozen donuts for him. I show up, and I'm so excited. It's the last day we're going to have to experience this hell. After today, we won't have to look at this place for a while. I'm so excited. Gavin gets to ring the bell. This nightmare is almost over. I show up into the observation room. He's ready to go. He's already like sitting on the side of the bed, and he's like, I want to get the hell out of here. I'm like, I know, honey, but you have to do radiation one more time. And he's like, I just want to go home. And I'm like, I don't care. So someone shows up with a wheelchair. Gavin sits down in it, and I tell her he needs to be sedated. And she's like, oh yeah. So his nurse comes back in, sedates Gavin. I put these 2 boxes of 2 boxes of donuts on his lap. And I tell the person pushing them, please make sure that these get to the technicians. And I'll never forget it. The woman pushing Gavin into radiation that last day was like, I have to give you a round of applause, because being a caregiver is incredibly hard, and you're not given the recognition you deserve. I hear that you've had a really challenging experience, and I just want to say that I'm very impressed with how hard you had to advocate. And I hope you realize that, you are as much of this journey as he is. And I was such a raw nerve, and I was so overwhelmed that I didn't know how to accept it. I'm like on high adrenaline running through my body. I just nodded at her, and thank you very much. And it took me a number of months to actually process that. I still remember what she looked like. She was older. She had short curly hair, big blue eyes. She looked like she was a nice woman. So Gavin goes to radiation that last day. And for the first time, I go back into the patient waiting room, which is so depressing. It's got like old nasty magazines and like old water stained puzzles. It reminded me of like the Golden Girls from the 80s. I was so grateful I never once stepped foot into that room until that day. And I positioned myself in a perfect spot to capture Gavin ringing the bell. And while I waited for him, several people walked in acknowledging it was their last day. And I witnessed several people ring the bell. It was a very cool experience. All different ages, men, women. There was one child, which broke my heart. And then there's Gavin. And he walks in and he's got his helmet in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. Even though he couldn't drink it, he's still like, it was like a humane thing. Like he wanted something normal, and he just would always carry a bottle of water. And there's like 14 technicians that pile in behind Gavin. And they're eating donuts and they're witnessing him ring the bell. I'm crying. I tape it. I video it. And then Gavin turns around, looks at all these people, and he's like, well, I hope I never see any of you ever again. Everyone starts laughing. Even the people that are in the room, like waiting, they're laughing. And Gavin's like, let's go, honey. Let's get the fuck out of here. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. 100%. So hand in hand, we walk out the door. And it was the weirdest thing. It was like, get into the car. And he's awake. And how, I don't know, because he was sedated not that long ago, but he's like fully in his body. But the second we got home, he fell asleep. The next episode will be the last of season 1. And I hope you stick around for the finale. If you are going through caregiving, cancer, know that I'm thinking of you. I'm praying for you. Please look up that company, Caregiving, Cleaners for Care. I will find it. There are resources available for you. Make sure you tune into, your community, your church, your family, your friends. Ask someone to come over and do your dishes. I love you.